If you have a puppy or dog facing possible luxating patella surgery, but you're wondering how you'll get through the weeks after surgery, stay tuned. I'm going to talk about the highlights of the last 2 months post-surgery and also some tips on how you, your dog's guardian, can survive this long healing period. My puppy Skeen went through this surgery on July 9th. I'll put the link to Skeen's patella surgery playlist in the description below. There are some real challenges for any surgery that requires an active dog to be calm and quiet over a long period. I want to share my insights on some of the challenges I've had with this surgery and also some survival tips on making this long recovery easier for you and your dog. One of the things I really want to emphasize is that every dog's case is unique, and it's really hard to compare the progress of one dog to another depending on the specifics of the surgery. My puppy was 5 months old when he had his surgery, and his case was very severe. He had no groove for his kneecap, and in order to prevent bone deformity, surgery was a necessity. Surgery required creating that groove for his patella because he simply didn't have one. Though puppies can heal faster, they're also very energetic, and they can have more accidents out of clumsiness and sheer exuberance. So my dog's progression might be different than what you would see in another dog. For example, a dog that already had a groove for its patella. And of course, always follow your vet's instructions, no matter what anyone suggests or recommends. I'm not going to claim that I did everything perfectly, because I didn't. I'll show you some examples of exercises I did, but I'm not an expert. Definitely talk to your vet or rehab professional about which exercises are appropriate and also when they're appropriate for your particular dog. So, the highlights of the last 2 months. After week 2, I noticed that the trazodone sedatives didn't seem to be having much impact on Skeen anymore. So I gave him a break from them except for when I thought he was a little bit more at risk. The sedatives were really important in the beginning though, because some dogs, like lively border collies, will try to do more than their bodies are actually ready to do. I don't like giving my dogs drugs, but if your puppy or dog is at risk of hurting themselves, the sedatives do help. We had our first rehab appointment 15 days after the surgery. It was basically an evaluation and checking to see if the patella was still in the right place, which thankfully it was. Because Skeen is such a wiggly pup and it's hard to do passive range of motion exercises, I started to focus on stretching Skeen's hip and leg on both sides. This was suggested by the rehab vet, and I'm mostly able to do this at night or in the morning when Skeen is really relaxed. I also started to walk Skeen over some poles. I just used brooms and shovels and spread them out at various distances. This again is what the rehab vet had suggested to me. Also, walking in circles in both directions is an exercise that we did. Because I want to train Skeen in canine freestyle, I taught him to walk around me in a circle, and it makes it kind of more fun exercise as well. I also had some pylons, so I had Skeen weave through the pylons. That was a little bit tricky, and I think I put them maybe a bit too close together for the level he was at. I think it's a good exercise, but you have to judge the distance and maybe give your dog a bit more leeway in the beginning, especially when they're just beginning to heal. Whatever exercises you do, you want them to be successful, and you don't want your dog to end up feeling frustrated. Something I did find out during the rehab appointment was that the surgeon's notes actually had said that in Skeen's non-operated leg, he actually has luxating patella grade 1 to 2. So if amputation is going to be a consideration for a dog with luxating patella, it's really important to know that the other leg is in good shape. I'm so glad that Skeen had the opportunity to have this knee surgery because the other knee isn't perfect either, although I haven't noticed it bothering him. The surgeon said that at this point it's not a big concern, so it's just one day at a time. I had another rehab appointment on week 3, and frankly Skeen hadn't progressed that much and was still really avoiding using that leg. He had his first session on learning to use the underwater treadmill. It was a short session, just learning to walk on the treadmill. He was a little bit reluctant at first, but then he really seemed to enjoy it. Week 4 was really tough because after a month, my puppy just really wanted to run and play, and he was bouncing on the leash in ways that he probably shouldn't have been. He was frustrated, and so was I. But I found that the solution to his restlessness really was doing any kind of training. I worked on getting him to hold something in his mouth, getting comfortable with a hand under his chin. We're still working on stay commands. Really, just any kind of training that doesn't involve running or jumping. Short sessions are great. 5 to 10 minutes make a world of difference in your puppy's mental state. The rehab exercises can also be stimulating, and with the rehab vet's permission, we were able to raise up the poles a little bit higher. The end of week 4, Skeen had another treadmill session, and he was starting to show a bit more progress. He was stretching his leg further than before and also using his operated leg a little bit more often, kind of like a skip, jump. There are lots of general resources on the internet, but I really recommend getting a rehab vet if you possibly can. Someone who can tailor the exercises specifically for your dog. It's just such a fine balance of building your dog's strength, but also preventing further injury. So the last appointment with the surgeon was August 27th. And the good news is Skeen's patella and the operated leg can no longer be luxated, which is really awesome. This means that his kneecap isn't moving out of place now. Skeen still appears quite lame, and the main reason for that is the tight hamstring tendons behind the kneecap. Once he is fully skeletally matured, he may still need another surgery for tibial rotation. Skeen is supposed to do passive range of motion exercises 3 times a day. This, like I said, is easier said than done sometimes. The surgeon recommended feeding Skeen so that he stands on his hind legs and using a slow feeding system. I use a plastic step stool, and I have a slow feeder bowl that I already was using for him. Skeen is allowed to swim now for a few minutes at a time, and also it's suggested that he wades in chest-deep water. Skeen will be going back to the underwater treadmill, and I've also used a kid's pool. Skeen walks in a circle in both directions. I'm looking forward to teaching him to swim as well. I've recently also had an expert in bone therapy work with him. This wasn't suggested by the vet, but I myself have had good results with bone therapy, and I felt that it was worth trying. When you're helping your dog get through this long kind of surgery recovery, it's really easy to get overwhelmed. I know I did. It can feel like a really big responsibility to help your dog achieve their best possible outcome. Of course, you want to do the exercises recommended by your vet, and when you can, some mentally stimulating activities. I've mentioned a few of the exercises we worked on. I've also taught Skeen to go to his crate on command, to do a hand touch, learn to speak, and I'm also doing some balancing exercises with him. The exercises can be practical and just things you want your dog to learn to do anyway that just aren't too physically exerting. Also, don't forget to check out Donna Hill's video on crate rest activities. It's got a ton of ideas for training games, and I'll put the link to that in the description below. Maybe one of the most important things that I would suggest, beyond keeping your dog safe, mentally stimulated, and following your vet's advice, is that you look after your own self too, and maybe even get you and your dog out of the house. I took Skeen to a couple of pet stores, and he had so much fun. He was just in his element with his staff interacting with him. Also, we've gone to outdoor cafes where dogs are allowed, and we've been able to visit with friends. If you and your dog are feeling cooped up, invite friends over. I had some crafty afternoons with friends over, and the dogs could just hang out. If you know of friends that don't mind having a dog in or outside of their house, it's also a great opportunity to socialize and teach your dog some manners around other people. Helping your dog through a long recovery that requires a constant, attentive watchfulness can admittedly be stressful. When I try to focus on the things I can do with Skeen, then I realize there really is an abundance of activities that we can do. And it really comes down to my mindset and my attitude. It's easy to get discouraged about the cost and the time involved with the healing. And even though his physical issues are not what I expected, I try not to compare Skeen's progress to that of another dog. We can still do a lot of nice things together, and we can build a bond that might be extra special because of this whole experience. Skeen is an adorable and funny dog, and he's so affectionate and sweet. He's definitely a character, and I just want the best for him despite his limitations. I also want to thank you, the viewers, for some of the kind and appreciative things that you've said to me. It's really meant a lot. I've really had a lot go on this year, including breaking my wrist, 3 dog surgeries, my father's death, my cat's death, and some other family health scares. When I read the positive comments, it really lifted my spirits. And I'm also incredibly grateful for everything I do have. 3 awesome dogs, a sweet, eccentric cat, a beautiful property on an acreage in a beautiful area of the world. So I'll continue to focus on all the good that surrounds me, and I hope you'll do the same. If you're going through a similar surgery with your dog, I honestly wish you the best outcome possible. No matter your situation, I send many warm wishes your way. Dogs have a way of making your heart grow bigger, not just from the joy they bring us, but also from the care they require from us to give them the best lives possible. From my heart to yours, have a pawsome day. And I hope you'll join us on our future adventures.